Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Welcome to Thursday's show. Tomorrow's Friday, which means we will be at Scrambler's Friday Road Show every Friday from Scrambler's 6 to 9 That's sponsored by Extra Mile Home Inspection and Real Estate Repair for all of those needs. All right, the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF if you'd like to offer up any thoughts or comments, insults, knock yourself out, have a good time with all of that. If you download the app, not only can you listen to the show and podcast and have access conveniently to pretty much everything that's also on the website, but you can more easily utilize that Pyramid Roofing talk and text line. There's just a button. Boom, push it. And it is as simple as that. We have Author of the Week, sponsored by ABC Books, coming up. Christy Fulnecki will be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. And thought we'd kick off with good news / bad news. The good news is the American people recognizing what is going on in this country. Now, the bad news is what is going on in this country. Majority of voters say that Biden wants to imprison his political opposition, Donald Trump, before the election. This is what the American people feel. They see what's happening, which is all the more perfect given that the Democrats are still out there utilizing the talking point that if Donald Trump gets elected president, he's going to start imprisoning political opposition. And I think that they are hurting their cause a bit because normal people, just normal people, they see that and they go, that's what you're doing. If your definition of a dictator is someone who, once they get in power, they are going to take steps to imprison political opposition, you're describing the current administration. By the Democrats' definition, Biden is a dictator. I think that this is something that really should be noted. When they describe Donald Trump as a dictator and list the reasons that he will prove to be a dictator, they are listing actions that are currently being undertaken by the Biden administration and the Democrat Party in states all over this country. It isn't the Republicans ultimately or independent voters that are defining the Biden administration as acting as a dictator. The Democrats are the one creating that definition. And polling shows that Americans get it. A clear majority of voters recognize President Joe Biden hopes to put his likely 2024 Republican opponent in prison before the election should former President Donald Trump be convicted in any of his criminal crimes. Trump, of course, facing all this criminal prosecution by Democrat operatives who seek to get Biden reelected. The recent McLaughlin and Associates poll, viewed by the Washington Examiner, suggests that most voters agree with Trump on this matter, and that is he's the victim of political persecution. When asked if you think that Joe Biden wants to stop President Trump from winning the election by putting him in jail, 56% of voters said yes. 14% were unsure or refused to answer the question. Only 30% say they do not believe that. Only 30% of Americans. And I can guarantee you a portion of those actually do believe it, but they don't want to admit it because they probably support it as well. The Democrat Party and the media has been successful in bringing a portion of the American population into the fold of authoritarianism, and that's not unique. Any country that has authoritarianism, I mean, you're going to have, if you poll people in Russia, you're probably going to have about 30% of that population that is perfectly fine and supportive of Putin when he does things like puts his political opposition in prison. You'll probably find about 30% of the population in Venezuela who support the efforts of Maduro to have his political opposition booted off the ballot. Probably have about 30% of the population of Iran that supported the efforts of the elite there to, as they successfully did last summer, boot main political opposition off the ballot. So to have about 30% of the population here in America that say, wow, we don't believe that Biden actually wants to put him in prison, for the purposes of preventing the American people from electing him to be president, there's going to be a portion of the population that the left has successfully assimilated, as the left has been assimilated in all these other countries, into also wanting that to occur. Breaking the figure down by party affiliation, 86% of Republicans believe Biden is hoping to jail Trump. Independent voters, 50%. Only 33% of independent voters don't believe it. A further 32% of Democrats admit that, yes, Biden is hoping to jail Trump to prevent him from being elected president of the United States. Only 48% disagreed. So you have less than half of Democrats that claim that they don't believe Biden is taking this dictatorship move. I think that says a lot. 58% of respondents, moreover, supported Biden asking prosecutors to back off of Trump, even saying that what Biden ought to do is tell his people, quit doing this. That's a majority of Americans. The culture of corruption, and I think that this is, it really does say where we are. And the America that so many of us knew and grew up in, it's gone. When you have a majority of Americans that fully recognize and acknowledge they recognize that the party in power, in the White House and in power of media and so forth, is actively attempting to imprison political opposition to keep the American people from choosing the political opposition. That puts us in line with countries like Russia, Venezuela, Iran, many African countries. Just corruption all over. And the fact that a majority of people know it and it still happens, see, that's where you recognize the tipping point. We've gone past it. It's one thing when it's realized and there's such a degree of outrage and the media is doing its job that it's over for that party, that it is considered unacceptable. But given it is still moving forward, that it doesn't change, and that there's no one, apparently no one in the Democrat Party as an elected official, not a single one that's standing up and saying, hey, guys, maybe this isn't who we should be. You don't have any high-level or even low-level Democrats arguing, hey, this is who we claim Donald Trump is. I don't know that we really want to be trying to imprison political opposition. Probably not the best thing, given that that's what we accuse them of. I don't know of one single Democrat, locally elected all the way up to Congress, or the White House, obviously, that has taken that stance. And that's how it is that it is a party of totalitarianism. Have a look at the weather coming up here in just a moment. Right now, the latest news update. The first alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Color 10 Fox 49. Meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Mostly sunny, a high near 66 today. 45 for a low tonight. 40% chance of showers tomorrow afternoon. High of 69, sunny. Only 59 on Saturday. YouTube Live, sponsored by Springfield Wraps, designer of the KSGF studio. In addition to the latest polling that shows most Americans recognize that Joe Biden is trying to have Donald Trump thrown in prison so that he can win re-election, that being Biden. At the same time, in another move that we've covered quite extensively, that is consistent with authoritarian rule, Democrats to police third-party candidates' ballot access efforts in hopes to save Biden. So this is, again, any candidate that they see that they believe may prevent them from retaining power is a candidate they will just try and deny the people's ability to vote for. I mean, this stuff is so standard dictatorship. Oh, look, we hold free and fair elections. Of course, we're not going to allow anyone on the ballot that could beat us or could cause us to lose. The Democrat National Committee is forming a group of lawyers to monitor how third-party contenders seek ballot access as the party continues to worry that such candidates could possibly hinder Joe Biden's re-election chances, the New York Times reported yesterday. Lawyers Dana Remus and Robert Lenhard will lead the new team to counter what the party views as a threat to increasing former President Donald Trump's chances of returning to the White House in November, according to the New York Times. Now, if you notice, the Democratic National Committee's focus here isn't that people aren't going to have their say. It isn't that Americans will be disenfranchised somehow. Their number one concern is that the American people may vote in a way that prevents Joe Biden from winning re-election. That's it. As independent Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Justice for All Party candidate Cornel West and the Green Party and No Labels continue to notch ballot access wins across the country, the party views policing these efforts as paramount. The DNC's legal group is organizing local lawyers across the country, as well as field teams' research and analytics to monitor ballot access, according to the outlet. Now, it's not monitoring ballot access to make sure that every American who has the legal amount of signatures and support get on the ballot. No, that's not what we're talking about. You know, this is, again, the political party that claims that Donald Trump and Republicans disenfranchise voters. And here they are openly acknowledging that they are going to dispatch teams in order to do everything they can to make sure there is no one on the ballot that might cause Joe Biden to lose. Candidates' efforts will be monitored to guarantee, quote, to the degree that you are seeking status as a new political party, you actually are a political party, a large group of people who believe what you believe, not simply a single candidate wanting to circumvent existing rules. Now, the opposite is true. Number one, the first problem with this is, and again, it's taken from the Putin page, the Maduro page, is you have the current president of the United States and his party just declaring, well, whether you're legitimate or not. The claim here is, well, we want to make sure that you're actually a legitimate party with support, not just some individual that wants to get your name on the ballot. But you see, the exact opposite is the case. They don't mind people being on the ballot that don't actually have support. They want to prevent the people that they claim they're trying to make sure get access to the ballot. They say they want to make sure that people who are on the ballot are actually legitimate individuals with support and have an actual political party behind them. That's the last thing that they want. Because they recognize right now in the current climate, when you're talking about Cornel West, you're talking about the No Labels Party, you're talking about the Green Party, and you're talking about RFK Jr., all of the polling shows that anyone that has any sort of potential meaningful impact on this election hurts Joe Biden. So their claim that they only want, quote, legitimate party people on the ballot as third party, the opposite is true. Those are the people they want thrown off the ballot. But it's as most things with these people on the left. They redefine terms, and it's projection. And everything that they say is up is down, left is right. Kennedy supporters forming the We the People Party, which will eventually nominate the independent for president in states like Hawaii, California, Delaware, Mississippi, North Carolina, Texas. He's already secured ballot access in Utah and has gathered enough signatures to get on the ballot in New Hampshire, Arizona, Georgia, and Nevada between his campaign and American Values 2024. It is going to... I think this is going to backfire. It's going to backfire on the Democrats because those that are most likely going to vote for a third-party candidate, if there is a third-party candidate on the ballot, are people that, if there's only Trump versus Biden, They hate Trump, so they'll vote for Biden, okay? Now, you throw RFK Jr. in there, you throw these other candidates in there, and the polling shows that that draws away from Biden. Now, what they're thinking is, oh, okay, well, we'll just prevent them from being on the ballot. Then those individuals will go back and vote for Joe Biden. But I don't believe that's going to be the case. The reason I believe that won't be the case is because you're going to tick them off. They're going to see what Trump supporters have been seeing all this time, and that is the Democrats throwing or attempting to throw their candidates off the ballot. And generally speaking, if you decide, hey, I kind of like Jill Stein or Cornel West or RFK Jr., oh, finally, here's an alternative so I don't have to choose between the two or default to Biden, who I don't really like. But then the Democrats, the Biden campaign, those people come along and take away your right to vote for that individual. In all likelihood, you're not going to go, well, I guess I'll go ahead and support Joe Biden then. It would be different if there were no third-party candidates to begin with. And those people that didn't really like Joe necessarily but hated Trump decided to vote for Joe. But once they saw, oh, here is an option for me that is a third-party candidate I like, and then it is the Biden people who take that choice away from those individuals, I do not think that is going to make them feel like voting for Joe Biden. In fact, potentially, it might anger enough of them, or some of them enough, to vote for Trump. Because at least Trump did not deny them the right to vote for the candidate of their choosing. This is going to be very interesting to watch play out because they're not going to not do this. The DNC has already put everyone on notice, and they're already forming these little squads here to do everything they can to prevent Americans from having those options. Now, the media is going to do everything they can because, the media on a national level, to them, the reality is there is number one goal, and that is to make sure that people don't vote for Donald Trump. And so I don't think that they will even recognize it's a bad thing to have third-party candidates thrown off the ballot because the ultimate goal, of course, is to make sure Trump doesn't get in there. And if that's what has to be done, then so be it. And there's not going to be any sort of outrage. We're not going to hear about disenfranchising of voters. We're not going to hear any sort of self-reflection or realization that, well, wait a minute here. They're doing what they claim Trump would do. They're doing what they claim dictators do. There will not be any of that. But that isn't going to make people who feel as if, thank goodness, a third-party candidate for whom I can vote instead of Biden, that's not going to make them less angry. Simply because the media isn't covering it accurately. In fact, it might make them even more angry. I believe this could have, to some degree, the same impact that Democrats running around for the longest time claiming the border was secure, running around claiming that, no, things are going great for you economically, whether you know it or not. It just takes people who are already feeling frustrated and makes them even more frustrated with a combination of angry. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com. Also at KSGF.com, your chance to win tickets to the Man Show 2024 coming up. Also, when you have the app, be sure on Fridays to watch out for those notifications to update you on the special for Godfather's Pizza from their 4 area store locations, Nixa, Battlefield, Ozark, and Springfield. That info comes via the KSGF app only, and it changes every Friday for those Friday evening specials with Godfather's Pizza. And you can also register to win tickets to see Barry Manilow live in concert coming up at Great Southern Bank Arena Saturday, August 24th. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Into the traffic there, mention A1 Custom Car Care and that financing. 0% interest for 101 days. And this really is something that can be beneficial if maybe you don't have the best credit and you have your vehicle break down and you obviously need your vehicle in order to get to work. You don't have money to fix it because you can't get to work because your car, so you're in this real bad position. And oftentimes people who don't have the best credit end up needing to go to a loan place where even if you pay it back in a week, you're paying like 20, 30, 40% interest. And so having that 101 days, you're talking roughly 3 months to be able to pay it back without interest on it is something that isn't oftentimes available to people that don't have the best credit. Now, whether or not that is, for you, if that's the best financial decision for you to make, that is up to you. But recognize that that is something that is available if you think, man, I'm screwed here because I'm going to, I'll be able to pay it off in 2 months, but the interest is going to kill me. You do have that option available with 101 days of 0% interest with A1 Custom Car Care. The First Alert forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals from Color 10 Fox. 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt, mostly sunny, a high near 66 today, 45 for a low tonight. 40% chance of showers tomorrow afternoon, 69, and Saturday, sunny with a high near 59. Well, it was announced yesterday what many people, I think a lot of Americans just cannot believe, that this administration continues to take steps that are clearly nails in the coffin of this country. And this administration, if they have their way, and they're taking steps to do it, are going to eliminate American-made vehicles. The auto industry in America is being killed by this administration. And yesterday was a tremendous step forward in doing that, while at the same time giving a massive, massive gift to the communist Chinese. In a joint announcement yesterday, the White House and the EPA unveiled the most aggressive multi-pollutant emission standards ever finalized. While the regulations target gas-powered vehicles, they're explicitly designed to push wider nationwide adoption of electric vehicles, and according to officials, are expected to ensure nearly 70% of all new car sales are zero emission within a few years. Do you know how hard it is going to be to find a gas-powered vehicle? And incidentally, do you know what this is going to do to the cost because of supply and demand? You are going to have 70% fewer gas vehicles when the vast majority of Americans want gas vehicles. We all know what happens with supply and demand. We all know what happens when you have much greater demand than there is supply available. The price skyrockets, and in addition to that, the shelves are empty. The lots will be empty of that. The only vehicles that will be available are vehicles that people don't want for a number of reasons, other than a small portion of the population. This, incidentally, is why socialist countries and countries that, and this is actually fascism, as opposed to socialism. Socialism, you've got so many of these definitions have a lot of wiggle room, if you will. But when it comes to the economy and private industry, fascism has always been the implementation of government that allows private industry to exist, but ultimately decides how the businesses are going to be run. They will come in and tell you, well, you're going to sell this product. We don't want you selling this product. You're going to make it this way, not that way. That's fascism. This is, again, another instance in which Democrats point the finger at people that they claim are fascist when they themselves support and promote and put us under fascism. This is fascism. This is why economies under fascism, or any, whether it's communism, fascism, socialism, any operating government that says we at the government level are going to dictate the rules when it comes to the private sector, it's why it fails. Because you have people, and we're watching this play out in front of us. You have people, most of which aren't even elected, so they're not accountable to the American people. This would be the EPA. Just up and deciding, screw what the marketplace wants. Screw what business sellers and producers want to do and screw what consumers want. We're deciding that this is what you're going to have. The opposite of this approach is why America became the single largest, most powerful country in the world and wealthiest in the world. Because there was a period of time, and in some industries we still do this, we actually allow the free market to decide. And when the free market is fully at play, and that is just people, Americans who are free, saying, hey, I have a good idea. I think people would want this product. And so they make it. And then some people want it, and they're like, ooh, I want more people to want it. And so I'm going to improve it some. I'm going to see if I can make it better so that people will want more of these things. And then somebody else goes, hey, look what they're doing over there. We ought to try that. We can come up with a better version of it. Maybe we can even make it cheaper. And then people, so who wins? The consumer wins. And the business owners win. And workers win because there are jobs available. And the Treasury wins because all of the people who are buying the product and who are being hired in order to make the product, they are all paying taxes. All of those reasons are why the United States of America became the most powerful country in the world, in the history of the world. And what we're watching the Biden administration do when it comes to the automobile industry is why all the other countries weren't. When Castro overtook Cuba, Cuba had a thriving economy. Then he put Che Guevara in charge of the economy. And Che Guevara did a number of things. One, imprisoned homosexual and the mentally handicapped, had many of them executed. And he hated black people, incidentally. So all you left-wingers out there that have your Che Guevara posters and T-shirts that you wear, that's your guy. But he destroyed the economy because he took it upon himself to do what the Democrats, what the Biden administration is doing with the automobile industry, decided to micromanage it. He knew what was best. He knew what products and services that the Cuban people, quote, should want for the good of everyone. And it all began to break down. It's one of the reasons that the Soviet Union began having to just continue to funnel money to Cuba because they were going broke. What once was a thriving economy destroyed it. Got so bad that Castro sent him to other countries to try to help their rebels overthrow governments because the Soviet Union was like, you got to get this guy. We can no longer continue to keep funding your country because you're screwing up the economy. Of course, it coming from the Soviet Union. History doesn't repeat itself. Arrogant, narcissistic, stupid people repeat history. And so do really intelligent individuals. It's just which history do they choose to repeat? When it comes to our economy, we had a fantastic opportunity to look back into the 80s because we were really dealing post-COVID, or in the middle of COVID, with an economy that was not unlike what Ronald Reagan inherited. Well, for different reasons. And you had the approach, and we would hear this so often, particularly when it came to inflation. Hasn't been this bad since 1983. This hasn't been that bad since 1982. These were the reference points that were always used. And it's like, oh, now what do intelligent people do? They say, well, what did we do back then that fixed it? Because by the end of the 80s, everyone agrees we were doing really well. In fact, some people look back at the 80s as a point of embarrassment because we were doing so well. Money, 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 money. Everyone was doing fantastic. So let's do that, right? Nope. The decision was to do the opposite because intellectually curious, individuals who were worried or concerned about success were not the people in charge. The decision was, let's do what countries who have driven their economies into the ground do. And that's what we're watching. And we saw that further yesterday. An interesting side note regarding this announcement, you've got the United Auto Workers Union came out in support of this change, which is it's going to destroy the automobile industry in this country, which, by the way, Trump has said day one he's going to reverse this. Now, one would think, why would the Auto Workers Union support this? Well, because the unions are not, ultimately, their goal, and I think you watch this play out, it isn't to actually look out for the workers. It's to get money from the workers in order to help their friends in power. Recently, we've talked about the Argentina, the new let me get a traffic update here, and then I want to make a point to further this regarding the unions and how the unions now are acting, and they have for some time, as a tool of the political power. And all they are, again, they just are there to extract money from the workers. When you have these people standing up and saying, yes, we support this effort that will destroy, the workers know it, many of them recognize, will destroy their livelihoods. This tells you where their true priority is. More coming up. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. The Biden administration, along with the EPA yesterday, announced what, if things don't change, if Trump doesn't get elected, in all likelihood be the final nail in the coffin of the U.S. auto industry, and that is forcing this switch over by, what was the year here, within a few years, 70% of all new car sales will have to be what they call zero emission. Now, that is zero emission on the road. They are not better for the environment. In fact, in many ways, they're worse for the environment. And the reason that this is going to destroy our auto industry is because China, they're the ones who have the resources for the batteries. This is a huge gift to them. This is once again another move by this administration to harm our economy to the benefit of another, and that's the communist Chinese economy. And they are, in order to evade tariffs, they are building these vehicles in Mexico so they can get them in here extremely cheap. This is what Trump, when he was talking about a bloodbath in the automobile industry, this is what he's talking about. The UAW came out and said, oh, yeah, we fully support this. Now, why would they support something that is going to destroy the livelihoods of their workers? Because they don't work on behalf of their workers. That's not their ultimate goal. When those people lose their jobs, do you think that the UAW bosses aren't going to have some sweet gig laid out by the Biden administration? Of course they are. They'll be taken care of. This isn't unlike what we have seen recently with the election of the libertarian president in Argentina, who got in there and he's cut all these government programs. For the first time in decades, they are already seeing surpluses instead of these massive deficits. Inflation is coming down. But there were all of these union members, thousands of union members that were out there marching against him, marching against a new president that is getting the economy back on track so that the standard of living can increase for those very people. Why would they do that? Because their bosses are having them do it. Because cronyism and corruption is what benefits the union bosses in Argentina. And so this is not good for them. This is the same reason that you see the head of the UAW coming out. Because it's about Joe Biden. It's about the Democrats. Not about the workers. As it is in every fascist, socialist, communist country. The workers are talking points. And end up being the ones who suffer the most. And yes, because it is oftentimes human nature, many of those individuals will vote for and campaign for the very people that will destroy their lives. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Springfield Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. You RVers, if you haven't gotten them out, Memorial Day is a big sort of launch day for a lot of folks, while some of you are just annually utilizing. Maybe you travel down where it's warmer in your RV. But for those that it is more seasonal, if you haven't done your annual maintenance yet, Wilder RV, don't wait to do it. It's just like calling your HVAC on the first day, your HVAC service on the first day it's really hot or the first day it's really, really cold. And you're like, what do you mean it's going to take 3 weeks to get in? No, that's because lots of people are doing the very same thing. Get ahead of it. Do it now. Wilder RV for all of those maintenance needs. For those of you who already utilize Wilder RV, I obviously don't need to tell you. You know the service that they provide, which is why even though it is a shot up outside of Springfield, it is well worth it. And if you don't yet have your RV or know much about the RV world, I recommend wherever it is else that you look, check around, go right ahead, but definitely put on your list Wilder RV in Clinton, Missouri. You can find them at ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. Former President Trump, in a statement to Fox News Digital, said that these new climate regulations that are set to eliminate the auto industry from the United States and making us reliant on China for our transportation is something that day one will be reversed. Trump noting it will destroy the livelihoods of countless U.S. auto workers while sending the U.S. auto industry to China. And I think that this is, again, not learning from history, even recent history like COVID. All of the products that we found ourselves unable to purchase because they came from other countries like China, the supply chain issue, and then the decision within years of that, what should be a tremendous wake-up call. This administration decides to make our transportation reliant on one of our top enemies in this world. It's a remarkable thing to watch. People in a country that lead a country deliberately destroy that country. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs. Are you a veteran? There's something for you. Do you need to refinance? There may be something for you. Are you going to live in certain parts of the state as opposed to others? There could be something specific for you. There's so many different offshoots and caveats depending on your place in life when it comes to home loans, and you're not going to get the experts everywhere you go, all right? It's sort of like tax preparation. Oftentimes you see some of these people. I remember years ago deciding, and this was, they didn't have the real convenient apps with the TurboTax, and that stuff existed, but it wasn't real user-friendly. And but you could still get it yourself and do it yourself. And I didn't want to do it. I thought, well, I'm going to go. And there was a place where I lived at the time. It was in the mall, and it was temporary, and you could have your taxes done. And as I was going through the experience, I realized that this person was just going through a do-it-yourself program. And didn't really know much more than anyone else. And when it comes to anything, and home loans fall into this category, just because somebody has the job to help you with a home loan doesn't really mean that you're getting someone that's an expert, but you do when you deal with iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. Tomorrow's Friday, so we will be broadcasting live from Scramblers Friday Road Show, sponsored by Extra Mile Home Inspection and Real Estate Repair. And it is Thursday, which means Christy Fulnecki is here with us. Hi, how are you?
Hello.
It's good to see you. But
I know.
I haven't for the last couple of weeks. You were out of town for different reasons.
Yes. And I've had a lot of trials. I think I've had 4 trials in the past 2 or 3 weeks. So staying busy, and I took my daughter to Arizona for her senior trip.
So what is it with Arizona and you guys always go to Arizona?
Easy thing.
Is it?
Yeah, and I know we actually eat at the same restaurants, and as I do that for my girls that are graduating.
It's always Arizona.
Well, they get it. They can pick where they
Okay.
want to go. It's just a trip with me, and when they graduate,
they're like somewhere quick.
school. Well, they have a spa and restaurants, and then we always do the ATVs in the desert.
Yeah.
It was so
Yeah, it was
fun. Oh yeah, it's great. Yeah, and that's kind of an adventure, and it's not an easy thing to take an ATV through a desert, but
Yeah, I've never
kind
done
of challenging.
it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you haven't?
No.
Oh, it's great. It's
you
great.
act like that's something that just everyone does. Oh, you haven't? That's weird. You've never driven through the desert on an ATV? Huh. I'm not the jet setter that you are.
Interestingly enough, they were saying during COVID, they were so busy because, California was shut down and everything. And so they said that everybody wanted to come out there.
It's Sarah's birthday. Yeah.
You didn't even say anything when I came in.
It's just another day.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah.
Well, thank
She's
you.
been talking about it for weeks.
Oh, yeah.
You
Got a
serious?
party planned and everything.
Yeah,
So what'd you guys buy her? What did the station get you?
I got her some dreamsicles because she had never had dreamsicles before. We were talking about it on air.
It's true. He made fun of me for being poor.
I don't think I haven't had dreams.
Those were 2 separate things.
No, they weren't. He made fun of me for being poor.
We were
because I
talking
never
about-
had them.
We're talking.
Oh,
we're
that's so
talking
funny.
because Wendy's released a new Frosty. It's a dreamsicle Frosty. Okay, and so we were talking about it, and she said she never had a dreamsicle, and maybe because you're Native American? Is that a thing? Like you didn't have dreamsicles because it was like encroaching on dream catchers. So they're like, no, we're trying to appropriate our culture.
Observation.
And so anyway, I got her a box of dreamsicles.
And I ate one, and it was good.
Well, you didn't say. I didn't know if you like. I felt like
It is.
they're it's
Vanilla.
vanilla and orange mixture.
It's like an ice cream.
I don't know.
Now
I
there's a
missed
different
that.
version. So the one that usually I was accustomed to, the outside had the harder sort of popsicle style texture, like a regular pie, and then inside was a vanilla cream. The
Oh,
one
I know
that
what that is.
yeah, so
Okay.
the one that or what I got her was all sort of ice cream bar that was just a swirl mix of orange and vanilla.
was good.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Is this an 80s thing?
I think it was a 60s thing. I do. I mean, it went through. No, I do. I think it was something from.
The vanilla.
And I
the
think
vanilla and the needle.
Dreamsicle may be a trademarked brand because I noticed as I was looking for them, they did also have the kind. It was a different brand where it was the outer harder popsicle orange with the inside cream, but it was a box of like 20. And I thought, well, she doesn't like them, so I got her the smaller box
Gonna
instead.
get you a present. So what else do you want for your birthday?
Well, I think that Nick really fulfilled my wish.
I mean, well, after that,
I
I
don't
don't
even
do
top that.
I could give you peace on earth.
I'm
Maybe,
alright with
maybe
that.
not. Maybe not.
oh, here we go again with the Native American stuff. Have a look at the weather coming up here in a moment. Right now, the latest news update. First alert forecast sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Mostly sunny, 66 for a high today, 45 tonight, a 40% chance of showers tomorrow afternoon with a high near 69, and Saturday sunshine 59. Streaming live, KSGF.com. I am Nick Reed. Christy Filnecki joins us.
Yes, and I am Christy Filnicki.
Yes, you are.
She's getting ready to go to the Naval Academy, so she leaves in June.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm very excited.
We had our lunch bunch yesterday. There was a gal who went to high school with you. She thought she was maybe a year ahead of you.
Oh.
She didn't say anything. I don't know. She didn't say anything unflattering that I recall.
Well, that's good.
Seemed pretty neutral. I
Yeah.
think it's clear.
She was probably too polite. She was a polite gal. She wasn't going to be rude.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, that's good.
I thought we'd start off with some audio.
Yes, let's do
All
that.
right. This is there's no real segue here, but there was a sit down that Nicole Killian of CBS News did in Georgia, crucial swing state, gauging the sentiment of black voters, and she sat down.
Interesting.
And so the piece is, I think it's about 15 minutes long or so, but there's one segment in particular, and it's a young black couple, and she's interviewing them, and she is the girlfriend or wife. She's a Democrat activist, and he's kind of not really so political. You get the impression. And so what you hear is the CBS correspondent here, and she's asking each one of them, okay, so how did you vote this year? How did you vote this year? How did you, each one? She's pointing to the man, then the woman, the man, then the woman. And then it gets up to the current election.
In 2008 and 2012, you voted for
Barack Obama.
2016,
I voted for Donald Trump.
Hillary Clinton. 2020,
Donald Trump.
Biden. And who will you vote for in 2024?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
Whoa.
You may vote for the former president.
I may.
Why do you say that?
My views on certain things have changed. I am very much so riding the fence.
What are you struggling with?
Being in a pattern of doing the same thing that I've been doing, because it's kind of like second nature. Like when you go in a poll, you hit Democrat. Something has to happen. I mean, it's just so expensive to survive. And we're planning on having kids. I don't want to live in a stressful environment trying to rub two pennies together to try to make it either.
When you listen to this, it's almost as if black people vote kind of like a lot of other people do.
Yeah,
and they have
right.
the same worries and concerns.
That's
this
interesting.
what she is talking about is identifying why they are seeing an erosion of black votes for Democrats and Biden, because of, she's like, this sort of, she's woke, if you will, not in the most recently traditional sense, but she's realizing, as she said, we just go in and it's like automatically as black people, we just vote Democrat. And then at some point you're like, but wait a minute, this is not helping us,
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because we say, why do people keep voting for him? And it's interesting that she's saying, well, it's just automatic and you don't think about it.
And it's true. They have done a very, very good job of taking that segment of the population and convincing them that really they have no choice because, well, Republicans are racist and they're going to do all these horrible things to you. And so what they've done, and this is what they're trying to do right now to all Americans, is tell them, it has nothing to do with policy or if your life's going to be better. They're evil and we're good.
Yeah.
And you hear that. I mean, that's just the way, end of democracy as we know it. They're going to, he's going to be a dictator. It's all just scare people into thinking that there is no choice. And so it becomes automatic. And what's happening with the black community, to some degree, significant enough that Democrats are worried. And what you heard articulated by this one individual black woman in Georgia is that realization, like, wait a minute, why do I keep doing this just because I'm told that I'm black, so I'm supposed to? And things are worse. They're getting worse.
And there's no amount of marketing that can overcome that.
Right.
I mean, maybe some gaslighting, but there's no amount of marketing. Because when it hits your home and hits you individually, I mean, that's what we've said, food and gas and everything else. And that home ownership is, I can't even believe how low that is. I mean, and she said you're trying to start a family. I mean, there's no way that the Democrats can overcome that.
And I was saying it over a year ago that the Democrats telling Americans, no, you're wrong, you have it better than you ever have, is not going to work. Because it either takes that voter and makes them even more frustrated because you're not listening to me, But it also sends the message that obviously with these people in charge, it isn't going to change.
Yeah.
Because they're telling me that what they see is wonderful success. And so if you are a woman like this who says, we're thinking about starting a family and things are just getting more expensive and worse, and she's being told by the party in charge, no, everything's great by our standards, that's telling her it is not going to get better with them because they think everything's going just fine.
Plus, it's so condescending. I hate that you're trying to, especially if you're talking to an elected official or something, you're trying to tell them how much, maybe your community is struggling. And then they tell you, oh, no, it's not. You don't know what you're talking about. Really? I mean, so it's so frustrating. I know people are so frustrated.
Here is, and this stuff is fantastic because, like, what she was doing, and this is what I don't love it because she's against Trump, she's talking about voting for Trump. It's because she gave an explanation that was based on reality.
Right.
It wasn't, well, because so-and-so's racist. She was talking about real life things. And we're hearing that more, particularly in the black community that has been shut down and told don't even think, just automatically vote Democrat. And so this is audio. There some host, and they're 4 black guys that were part of this panel doing a podcast called Chicago's Thinking Outside the Box. And they were, they sort of Q&A with the audience, and there was a woman that got up and began speaking about what they, specifically people of color, are dealing with in Chicago because of illegal immigration.
We are a sanctuary city. We started being a sanctuary city back in 1980, which of course should have been changed a long time ago. So they bring them in, you wonder where the money coming from. They taking it, the COVID fund that was here, that money. You talking about all the housing programs. So when people pay rents, all the rental programs, that money, all the programs that we have in the city of Chicago, they are bankrupting us. They are taking from all of these programs that we have, and they're taking the money and they're funding the migrants. Our taxpayers, we've already paid $32 million out of our taxes to house and take care of the migrants thus far. Now, we already know the only ones who qualify to become citizens in asylum here from the starts, if they were here after August, they don't even qualify. But here we're going to be taking care of them for 5 to 7 years while there's paperwork floating on people's desk. And why? Send them home. Send them back. But Venezuela already said, oh, we're not taking them back. So now...
Who did you vote for?
First of all, no problem with saying that. I did vote for Biden because I was not voting. I did.
The question you answered it, right? This migrant influx that we're dealing with right now, it's your fault.
She went on, and she started, she did get lost in some of the talking points that have been effective on her about, well, the Congress won't fund this and that and so forth. But the point is, they're talking about real things, and they are saying, okay, let's recognize what we are doing, what impact does it have, instead of just this default, well, Republicans are racist.
Yeah,
which
right.
the Democrats have been successful in unfortunately, because it's been damaging to the black community more than anyone. And so, this is what the Democrats are grappling with. They are very freaked out, and I'm going to put this as plainly as I can, because black people are starting to think for themselves. And they're starting to talk to one another.
That's right.
They're starting to exchange ideas, and that is causing panic in the Democrat Party.
Say anything and to talk to each other.
Yeah.
But that's just what I was going to say, is that they do not want minorities to be thinking and talking, and to talk in public like that.
I mean, it should just be such a wake-up call to anyone. And it isn't to say that Republicans are perfect or what. It isn't about that. But any political party that just to have the current president running for re-election that has flat out said, if you don't support me, you ain't black.
Yeah.
I mean, that anyone who demands you don't think, anyone who demands that you support them, otherwise you're not genuinely who you are, that should be a huge wake-up call. And I think it is slowly but surely. We're beginning to see the results of some rejection.
I've said this before, but it was so such ingenious that Florida and Texas started sending the migrants to these cities so these people could actually see for themselves what's going on and what's happening, and make it real, and bring it to their home again. That, oh my gosh, this is not something that happens on the border. This is affecting America. And now they're in my city. Now they're taking my money, and I'm paying taxes to house these people. And now it's my problem. I mean, that was great. And I saw that now, I guess some of the owners of these bus companies are not transporting them anymore because of a lawsuit in New York.
Right. Let's see. We're going to take a break. We got some traffic to hit. We'll continue on with Christy Folnecki here, the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. Well, spring is officially here, which means those severe storms are going to start popping up more often. And I don't want you to fall victim to a roof issue, and I don't want you to fall victim to a random door knocker that is just not a professional. And that is why I want to recommend Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. The thing that I really like about them is that you're not a number or a sale. They understand that your home is the largest investment, and they want to help you take care of it the best that you possibly can. And sometimes that doesn't mean a whole new roof. Maybe that just means a simple roof repair. So they're going to be upfront and honest whenever it comes to what needs to be done to your roof. If that's the type of company that you're looking for, then you have found it with the Pyramid Roofing Company. So if it is time for that roof inspection, or when something unexpected pops up, go ahead and give Josh and his team a call. You can find all of that contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
First Alert Forecast, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. From Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Mostly sunny, high near 66 today, 45 tonight. Chance of showers overnight into tomorrow. Tomorrow's high 69, sunny, 59 on Saturday. We've got the final two of Biden's best moment bracket. Are we down to two? Or are we still at four?
Yep, no, we are down to 2. I think voting ends Sunday. I think that's what us. Yeah.
So
I'm trying to think of what it was. Biden tripping up the stairs 3 times, and I can't remember what the other one was. I think it was him getting confused, trying to get off stage. I think that's right.
That's sponsored by Pyramid Roofing Company. So Sarah was texting me yesterday. She got accosted by a man because she would not sign something, I don't know, that said as a woman she should be able to kill her own children. And so he was, so because she, personally does not choose to support that, the man was, I guess, none too happy.
Yeah.
What was this? Where?
Yeah, so I was over at like Ross and Marshall's.
They've been out there in force.
Yes.
I was out there with the girl child a couple of weeks ago, and I figured that's what it was. We avoided them, but they had a bunch of them out there.
Yeah, so yesterday when I was over there, this guy came up to me and he was like, "Ma'am, would you like to sign our petition?" And I said, "Well, what's it for?" And he goes, "Women's health reproductive rights in Missouri." And I said, "Oh, no, thank you." And he followed me as I was walking into the store, and he's like, "Ma'am, it's really important that we get women's reproductive rights on the ballot." And I said, "No, thank you." I was nice. And then he yelled at me, and he said,
Whoa.
"Health reproductive rights matter."
Oh my God. Such
These people are
drama.
insane.
I'm sorry, I don't want to kill my children.
What? Yeah, I know. Well, you
Yeah,
don't think
really.
everyone should have the right to murder their own children? What's wrong with you? I love how that's called.
Catholic card on him. That would have been really good. He probably would have beat you up.
I love how they call it reproductive rights. I mean, and, of course, they're the same people that called slave ownership property rights. They're like, your property rights matter. That's what that same guy would have been outside the old town market. Would you please sign this petition on property rights? No, thanks. I don't believe in slavery. I don't think you should be able to do that to another person.
Yeah.
But your property rights are at stake.
Oh,
Okay.
What a compassionate liberal.
Right, yeah.
Ironically,
right.
Well, you brought up the Catholic card there.
Yeah, right.
That's actually, I was going shopping because the husband and I are actually getting remarried in the Catholic Church on Saturday. So I had to pick up just a couple of things. So ironically enough, that is what I was shopping for.
And say that same thing. Go back there.
Well, we got
tell him that.
text in. Same thing happened to me, Sarah. I'm a woman, and a fat slob man tried to pressure me to sign that crap. Same location.
It's crazy. Because
You're a guy, a fat slob guy?
Actually, he was. So
It was
probably
probably the
the
same
same
guy.
person.
Oh,
But it was
wow.
interesting enough. So I got my things that I needed, and then I drove past TJ Maxx and then Burlington because I thought, oh, well, I'll stop in there and just, look around. And every single one of those places had the people that were collecting signatures. Every single one of them was a man. Every single one of them.
Well, sure. If you're a guy,
Wow.
that's 18 years of child support you don't have to be responsible for. Of course they want. They're like, I'm surprised but you don't have a bunch of worthless piece of crap guys out there trying to get you to sign a petition that says women have to have abortions if they get them. I mean, it's just.
Maybe I should go over there. Be funny.
I saw there, that whole. Well, no man should be able to tell me. Again, back to the slavery analogy, which is perfect because Democrats are the party of slavery.
Yeah.
That's like saying that if you didn't own slaves, that meant you couldn't have an opinion on whether or not slaves should be legal. I don't think that's how that works. Right and wrong doesn't stop in these little areas just because I'm not somebody that participates in the wrong activity.
Well, you have no voice if you don't agree, so
Yeah.
that's right.
Stormy Daniels claims that she. So did you know that Paramount has a Stormy Daniels documentary going on right now?
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Well, what weird timing this is.
No, right.
She.
I don't think I'm gonna watch it.
Oh, really?
I'll skip that one.
Yeah. I wonder how many guys will get caught watching I thought this was a documentary. I went to Pornhub, put in Stormy Daniels, thinking I was going to see this documentary. And let me tell you, I've watched 20 minutes of it, and I'm still waiting for it to get to the documentary part. So this is okay. So she was asked about the non-disclosure money. It's called the hush money, and why she took it. She said, well, it was really about two things: trying to keep the story from coming out so that it would not hurt my husband and my daughter, and I wouldn't lose my life, and that there would have been a paper trail and money trail linking me to Donald Trump so that he couldn't have me killed.
Serious.
Yes. Like that would stop somebody. Really? I mean, that's how you know either she's an idiot. Yeah. As if, like, nothing about that makes sense. Like, nothing about that. If somebody was so worried that you were going to talk about something that they're willing to kill you, they wouldn't bother with the hush money.
That's right.
They would just kill you, you idiot.
This is gonna work. I mean, she's so legitimate that she's gonna bring down Donald Trump during the election year.
Did you know? Speaking of, so now they've touted out Christine Blasey Ford. She's the one that they turned into a hero because because she made claims against Kavanaugh, and she has a book out now. And of course, while this I know, right? Yeah, and so. The reason that the timing of this, it's, Supreme Court and, how important it is to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't get to make any more appointees because, he's going to appoint rapists. But this is what I found interesting. And frankly, I don't know that I remembered this, that she never actually accused Kavanaugh of raping her.
Really?
Yes. She said that she was afraid that he might.
Wow.
That's what but the media does such a great job of taking somebody and using that individual or a certain subject matter to create a narrative that even people who recognized what this was all about, I think, forgot that she never even said. She said that she was afraid that he might have.
Well, facts don't matter, really.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
This reminds me, similar fashion, of the Pulse nightclub shooting in Florida, where that was an individual who did it because it was anti-American, and he even called. It was either a news station or 911. He was doing it to pay America back for policies in the Middle East. He was mad because of war in Afghanistan or whatever. But because it was at a gay nightclub, they made it all sound as if it was a targeting of gays. That's what the media did. Right. The Obama administration did it as well, even though it had nothing to do with that. That location was chosen and he checked out like Disney World, but they had armed security there, so he decided not to do it there, according to his wife or girlfriend. And he checked other places, but Pulse nightclub had a no-gun policy, so he knew he could get in. He didn't have to worry about getting shot by somebody that was self-armed, and it was somewhat of an enclosed place. But he broadcast. He said, this is why I'm doing it. It was revenge against America. But the media still to this, I mean, every anniversary of Pulse nightclub shooting, you see articles written, and it's all in the context of the LGBT community. And this is what they do. They take these situations and they make them seem as if there's something they're not in order to...
reporter.
Well, especially to mislead people. It's about misleading. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting. When I saw that story, she said she was upset about the recent report or something with Kavanaugh. And I thought, you're upset that you didn't bring down a Supreme Court justice by lying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I'd be proud of. And all 3 people that are going to read her book. Yeah, whatever. I did want to mention so I could probably talk about it next week because I have to get more organized. I've had so many trials, but I have a new J6 client who he's been in the media a lot. And he was arrested right after the incident, 2001. He's spent over $250,000 on attorney's fees. And one of his attorneys, I think it was $80,000 or $90,000, never even looked at any of his discovery or anything. Then his last attorney, she they were getting ready for trial. She had nothing ready for trial. And then she walked in and said, if you plead guilty to these 14 counts, I'll make sure you go home, because his wife had recently filed for divorce.
Never trust these people.
And didn't happen. Signed it. I mean, I can't believe what is going on. My one of my current J6 client just texted me, and I had filed a motion because he's been I got him home on home detention, and he has a ankle monitor. And he said, like he says, he just does real people stuff. I mean, he can't really go anywhere, so except for doctor's appointments. So he hangs out with his son. I think is probably one or a little older now, and his wife. And so I filed a motion because he had been at home. I think it's been at least 8 weeks now for him to work and go to church. And apparently, I haven't read the opinion, but the judge denied it. And I thought, you still have an ankle monitor. This is ridiculous. The guy is just a regular guy.
Yeah.
And,
I know. This is the justice system.
And
It's
so when
not-
I talked to the U.S. attorney, it was before we had to do like a kind of a check-in report thing for the federal court in D.C. And so I told her, I said, you don't really have anything on my client. Do you just want to drop everything? I thought it's worth asking.
Yeah.
I mean,
Might as well. You never know.
I'm like, and she started laughing. She said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Well, he didn't do anything, and the best videos you got, I mean, those are the public videos that you played. So, I mean, you really don't have anything. So you want to drop it?" And then I said, "Well," which I thought this was interesting. I said, "Even if you did want to drop it, is it up to you as a U.S. attorney?" And she said, "No."
Yeah.
It has to go through the D.C. U.S. attorney, and it sounds like there's a whole board, and so everything is orchestrated in D.C. So even all these U.S. attorneys, even though they're separate cases, that's how we can represent multiple defendants, because they're all considered separate, as long as they're not co-defendants, that they pretty much are just doing whatever D.C. says.
Yeah.
So,
And that's deliberate, that location. It's the most anti-Trump, Trump supporter.
constitutional. It's not based
I
on
know.
the facts of the incident.
I know. This is the country that was ushered in with the Biden administration. We got Christy Fulnecki with us more in moments. I'm Nick Reed. Read through some of the text messages that have come in this hour from the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line regarding the dreamsicles. When I was a kid, it was a 50-50 bar, someone said, and then someone sent a picture of those monster drinks. They had dreamsicle version of that.
Oh, I don't know. It might be a little sweet, but
Someone said, I would sign what. So Sarah was accosted and actually followed into a store. Which store was it?
It was like Ross and Marshall.
Okay,
Yeah.
one of those, by a man yelling at her for not signing a petition to say that, I guess we should have a constitutional amendment saying that people can kill their children. So one of the texts coming in saying, I would sign one aborting Democrat procreation. Another saying, I bet I know who that fat slob was. Another saying, it's a good thing that guy didn't approach me. I probably would have said, well, if you're for abortion, perhaps we know where your mother should have started. Regarding the similarities to the argument made that, well, man has no right because he can't have babies to say I shouldn't be able to kill my babies, as noting that that's no different than saying that people who are against slaves because they didn't own slaves, that they shouldn't have weighed in on the issue. A text saying, or if you're not black, you don't have the right to talk about slavery, or be against it. Who are you?
Yeah.
Who are you? Who are you to say such a thing? You're not black. You don't understand.
That's right. I'm the minority that doesn't count. So,
yeah. I thought you might find this interesting.
Yes, I probably will.
Perhaps we all will.
Yes.
There's been a number of Republican resignations in Congress, and not an announcement that I'm not going to run for re-election, but just resignations, which is unusual for people who decide they don't want to be in Congress any longer, unless there's a health issue or a scandal. They usually serve out their term, right?
Right.
And so given that there is such an absolute slim majority that Republicans have right now, it is particularly unusual that you would have Republicans that say, oh, no, I'm not even going to finish out my term. And they're all considered to be what some would call rhinos, but they're these anti-Trump Republicans. So there is talk going around that there's this plan that before the election that enough of these anti-Trump Republicans will resign to give Democrats control of Congress so that they then are in charge of certification of the election.
What?
That
Are you serious?
That they could ultimately then, if Trump is elected president, that they could put a stop to it as
legitimate thing.
That's what a lot of people are believing is potentially going on. Because now some people are going to say, well, that's a conspiracy theory. Well, it would be technically a conspiracy, yes, because you have two or more people that are planning something. But because of the absolute unusual nature of this, that again, when people decide that they don't want to be in Congress any longer, it's they wait. They don't just resign, because you think about it, you could even just stop going, right? You just don't even have to show up. Right. You still collect the paycheck. You can still.
But it's bad if you leave and you want to run for office later because you have your donors, your constituents. I mean, you can't just leave office.
So given that there have been, first, and there's some that believe that removal of Santos was part of that plan. They're slowly but surely, as they've recognized, there's that. Trump could very well win, and it looks like that right now, if the elections were held today and they were legitimate, that he would win, that they've begun this plan to give Democrats control of Congress. That way, when it comes to certification, and they didn't want to do it all at once because it would be really weird and obvious, so they've just slowly, every few weeks, Republican, I'm leaving, to where.
Do they have a name of who's doing the names, I guess?
Well, the most recent was, what's his name, Buck, or Colorado, or what's that guy's name? Colorado, Ken Buck. He was the most recent. I think he announced that he is, resigning as well. So Now, there may be nothing, and I don't even know that it would necessarily fall out that way if they wanted it to, because you would still, I don't know that you can. So Johnson would still be speaker, but I don't know if you get to the point where somehow there are more Democrats than Republicans, if they have the ability to call for a new speaker, or even so. I don't know the logistics of that.
And then I guess what? So
or if that would even matter.
It would be an appointment then for the seat, right? Because you wouldn't have an election.
It may depend on the state.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean, that would be...
Even if that, what many people would consider to be sort of a far-fetched, wild idea. Number one, I mean, we're at a point where people who don't like Trump are attempting to put him in prison. So
Oh, yeah,
I
right.
don't think you can say, well, now anti-Trump people wouldn't do that at this point.
Oh, yeah,
So
right.
you can't. To me, it's not realistic to believe that
But-
they wouldn't do something like this.
Should a Republican that would choose the
Yes.
hatred over
Oh yeah.
Trump
Yep.
over
Absolutely.
the good of the country?
Absolutely. Look
Well,
what
that's
Liz
true.
Cheney did.
Well, that's true.
And Kissinger.
Yeah.
I mean, they altered evidence. They destroyed
Right.
evidence. They withheld exculpatory evidence, all to hurt Trump and Trump supporters, and they're elected Republicans. So,
Yeah. Well,
or
that's a
she
good point.
was. She's not any longer. Christy Falnecki with us. Another
Yes.
break. Continue on here. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Gotcha.
Christy Falnecki is joining us.
Yes.
So
Good morning.
Yeah, and to you. Now, someone had noted accurately so that when it comes to the Congress that's involved, when it comes to the new president and all of that, you're talking about, I believe it would be after the new Congress is sworn in, I think. But part of what they're saying they believe here is that they are, these folks are resigning that have always been real solid wins. That some of these people are stepping aside, believing that that could hand those seats to Democrats. But like I said, there's so much speculate. A part of the reason some of it is warranted paranoia, but
Yeah.
but also at the same time, why would they be resigning instead of serving out their term? Why that is just not something that makes sense to see happen with this level of consistency.
It's to me.
Yeah.
Liberals are going to try to do anything they can to get him to stop him from being elected.
Darn right.
And I mean, can you believe that you can't appeal a decision in New York without putting $500 million up?
I'm not being overly dramatic when I say number one, I would never do business in New York, but I also don't, not that I had plans on going there, but it's getting to the point, some of these states, the idea of going there, if you're not a Democrat, scary. Because
Yeah, right,
it's almost like being an American in some Middle Eastern country where, yeah, you probably will be fine, but if somebody for whatever reason decides that they want to make a point and then you're screwed.
Yeah.
That you
And I
have
tell
no
you,
rights.
That is so true. And I felt like that.
Well, DC's that
in
way,
DC.
yeah.
And I was in the DC jail, and then, I didn't have my phone and my purse and my bar card or my license. And I thought, they could stick me in solitary confinement and nobody would be able to get me out.
Yeah.
I mean-
and so, yeah, whether it's DC and the fact that most Americans, I think even Trump supporters, don't realize that some of these Americans that they are sweeping up and threatening with decades in prison weren't even in the Capitol.
No, I know.
They weren't
Yeah.
even inside. They've just decided And retroactively, they decided, well, now we're going to count the lawn as trespassing. When there was never any barriers or law enforcement or anything that said you can't be on this lawn, but they made it retroactive. And so,
they're trying to prosecute all the people before the election the people. And that new client I have, he wasn't even in the Capitol. The one that I was talking about spent all that money.
I know.
He wasn't even in the Capitol.
I think that Republicans need to perhaps be a little better about making Americans understand that these majority of these people aren't even in the Capitol. Christy Fulnecki, as always, thank you much.
Yes, thank you. That was fun.
News in 60 seconds. I was having a conversation recently with someone who has worked for the federal government for years and years and years. And he was showing me a letter that he and other employees had received. It was a lengthy letter from President Joe Biden. And it was just talking about how important they are to democracy and just, on, and just, it was a lengthy thing. And he was showing it to me and telling me that never in the however many decades that he's worked for the federal government has something like that ever happened. And he said he knew what it was, and it was the president utilizing his position to campaign to people who work for the government. That this is an effort to try to gin up support amongst government workers, which already is disproportionately high for the Democrat Party. But, this is what we're seeing at this point with the Democrats, specifically the Biden campaign. Some of these different categories that they have always relied on just to vote for them without questioning are beginning to question. I mean, you've got a majority of Hispanics that say they're going to vote for Trump. You are seeing very significant erosion amongst the black community. And so they are not taking these for granted. They're trying to stop this hemorrhaging, and apparently it is amongst government workers as well. Now, I bring this up because of the following story. President Joe Biden announced yesterday that his administration is canceling or transferring. Now, this is on top because the student loan dollars they keep transferring to people who didn't take out student loans. So this is the announcement coming that they were going to transfer the $6 billion in student loan debt for 78,000 individuals that work as public service workers. So in other words, government employees. So now what you've got here, this is all a subtle way or not so subtle way of buying votes. When Georgia was needed to be won in order to make sure that Democrats continued the control and increased it in the Senate, Biden just flat out said, vote for Warnock and I'll make sure that you get $2,000 checks. I mean, you can't get any more brazen and corrupt than that. And now you've got, of course, hey, I'm going to make other people pay for the loans you took out, and specifically targeting people who work for the government. So what he's doing is, and it's political. It's the same reason that he drained the strategic reserves, try to bring down gas prices before the midterms. It's all artificially manipulating things so that they temporarily look good in order to buy your votes. And now forcing Americans to pay for student loans that were taken out by individuals that went to work in the public sector, which is part of the Democrat base. It's just more corruption, and it's as clear and as transparent as one can get. Author of the Week coming up, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. Also, the weather first, latest news update. First Alert Forecast sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals from Color 10 Fox 49 meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Sunny 66 today, 45 tonight, 40% chance of showers tomorrow afternoon with a high of 69, and Saturday sunny high near 59. Sarah Myers.
Thank you. Quick Draw Gun in Monette. A little over a year ago, Brad decided that he was going to expand his shop, and he did that so he could have more inventory to better serve you. So new things, they are constantly getting added to the shop, and Brad, he actually messaged me last week to tell me that he has a ton of new products for you to choose from. Now, you can see high-end shotguns from Benelli, mid-range shotguns from Franke, Old West style revolvers and rifles from Uberti, and modern weapons from American and veteran-owned company Live Free Armory. So if you have been looking to add any of those names to your firearm collection, you can now find them at Quick Draw Gun in Monette. And of course, Quick Draw, they are still offering gunsmithing. They have a ton of accessories to choose from, and they still have their custom laser engraving and Cerakoting services as well. Now, in the meantime, if you have any questions or if you are looking for something specific, go ahead and give Brad and his team a call today. You can find all of the contact information for Quick Draw Gun in Monette under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
For one, I'm Nick Reed. It's Thursday, which means it is Author of the Week time, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. And we've got author Calvin Beisner, PhD, president of the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation. And his book is Climate and Energy, The Case for Realism. Welcome to the show, and tell us about the book. What is the case for realism in the context of climate and energy?
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show. Climate and Energy, The Case for Realism is a collection of 16 chapters by 16 different authors, a bunch of climate scientists, 9 climate scientists, a couple of environmental and energy economists. We've got ethics professors. We've got philosophers. It's quite an amazing book. And what it does is it gives the scientific case that while climate change is real and human activity does contribute to it, it is not disastrous, it is not an existential threat, and as a matter of fact, it's very likely that the benefits of the kind of warming that we truly, realistically can expect would outweigh the harms. And certainly the benefits of all the energy that we get from the coal, oil, and natural gas that get blamed for climate change outweigh the harms. We know that from as simple a thing as that over the last 100 years, the average number of human deaths caused by extreme weather events has plummeted by over 99%. What that means is that the wealth that we get by using abundant, affordable energy, reliable energy from coal, oil, and natural gas enables us to protect ourselves from whatever is happening with climate. So one of the key messages of this book is that poverty is a much greater threat to human well-being than anything related to climate. And since abundant, affordable, reliable energy is absolutely indispensable to lifting and keeping whole societies out of poverty, it is suicidal for us to demand a transition from abundant, affordable, reliable coal, oil, and natural gas to diffuse, expensive, and unreliable wind, solar, and other so-called renewable energy sources. So our aim is to provide the kinds of solidly, scientifically and economically and statistically verifiable facts for policymakers to make good decisions and for the public to understand this so that they can communicate their desires to their elected representatives.
Most of the narrative, if you will, that we hear regarding climate change and renewable energy, and it seems to be taught somewhat uniformly in schools and pop culture, is that there is a consensus, all scientists agree, that there is climate change that is due to man and that we should do something to stop climate cycles, the climate from changing. Otherwise, as a planet, we will be doomed. And the answer to that is electric vehicles, solar panels, wind farms. So are you saying that there's some folks in the scientific community that don't necessarily agree with that assessment because that's just not what we've been told?
Right. That's not what the mainstream media tell us. It's not what politicians tell us, and it's not what environmental activists tell us. But here's a dirty little secret. The UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which all of these folks who claim consensus always point to, it itself tells us in its 2018 assessment report on climate change of 1.8 degrees, okay, it tells us in that report that if we were to do nothing to reduce global warming from now to the end of the century, mankind would, on average, be only about 8.9 times wealthier than we are today, instead of about 9 times wealthier. In other words, even with the worst scenario of global warming, we're much better off than we are today. So the IPCC, supposedly the authority on this stuff, tells us that this is not by any means an existential threat. It is not even a significant negative for us. The benefits of the activities that contribute to warming so far outweigh the risks that at the end of the century, we will be at least 8.5, 9 times better off than we are today.
We are talking with our author of the week, Calvin Beisner. The book is Climate and Energy, The Case for Realism, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone. I find, as somebody that is much more of a casual observer than someone like you who is an expert in this area, that some of the solutions that get pushed are oftentimes, they just seem almost counterproductive. Are there certain activities or products that you find are considered to be really great for the environment, and in fact, not only are not helpful to the environment, but do damage to the environment?
Yes, absolutely. First off, it takes far more mining of earth materials to produce wind turbines, solar panels, and batteries, gigantic batteries and millions of them, than it does to mine coal, oil, and natural gas to provide the same amount of energy. In other words, you have to move a whole lot more earth, and you have to do a whole lot more processing of the minerals that you've moved, resulting in serious toxic waste runoff from those processing procedures for so-called renewable energy sources than you do for conventional so-called fossil fuel sources. Now, what also bothers me, because early in my life, I lived in India for a while where I observed poverty on a scale that we in the U.S. just don't see. I stepped over the bodies of people who had died overnight of starvation and disease, is the impact of the world's poor, on the world's poor of these sorts of policies. They will slow, stop, or reverse the conquest of poverty. And that will result in far higher mortality rates, far higher death rates in the developing world. And they also hurt the poor even in developed countries. By pushing up energy prices, they make it harder for people to afford food, clothing, shelter, and everything else. So, as a Christian ethicist, professor of ethics, I just find this kind of thing morally unconscionable.
A lot of folks, I find, they won't even necessarily engage in conversation when it comes to the truth about the environment and climate, because they will be faced with numbers and information that 100 and so many scientists all agree this, and there will be thrown at them will be thrown what they're told are facts, and they don't know who these scientists are. They don't know. It looks like some sort of official chart. And so they feel as if they aren't equipped to understand the complexities of the issue. What do you say to those folks?
Well, first off, a lot of the science can be extremely technical, but someone who understands it well can explain it well on a lay level. And that's what we have in all of the chapters of this book. We wrote this book intentionally to make it such that non-scientists can comprehend it. Second, the notion of consensus as somehow holding authority in science is the absolute antithesis of science. Consensus is not science, and science is not consensus. Science is dependence on observations of the real world around us. The late Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman famously said that the key to science is that when we try to figure out how something works in the natural world, first we make a guess, then we make predictions based on if that guess is true, then we make real-world observations, and if the observations contradict the predictions, the guess is wrong. And it doesn't matter how smart you are or how beautiful your guess is or anything else, you're wrong, right? Well, the computer climate models that are the only source of the notion of dangerous man-made global warming have been consistently wrong. Consistently, they project 2 to 3 times, even 4 times as much warming as actually observed over the relevant period. That means they provide no rational basis for any predictions about global average temperature, and therefore no rational basis for any policy about global warming and energy or anything else. Consensus is not science, and observation is, and that's what supports the realist position, which climate change is real, human activity contributes, it's not a disaster, and furthering our economic development protects us from whatever happens in climate.
Final question for our author of the week, Calvin Beisner. If a person is once again just casually observing what debate there is on this, it is easy to walk away with the conclusion that there is, as you said, a consensus, whether it's scientific or not. And then there's just a few rogue individuals that are a little bit wacky, like yourself, that come up with these sort of alternative perspectives on science. And I know just because of research that I've done, what oftentimes leads to the politicization of science, particularly when it comes to so much that is pushed in politics. And I'm wondering how corrupt, I suppose, if you will, when it comes to this subject matter, is the scientific community. Is it as lopsided as it seems, or is there an extreme overrepresentation of those who claim that we're all doomed because of man and we have to somehow stop the climate from changing? Where are we on that scale?
Yeah. Well, ClimateGate, the release in 2009 and 2011 of thousands and thousands of emails back and forth among the various climate scientists who really have pressed the alarmist notion, revealed to us very, very clearly that there was a very self-conscious effort to control all of the peer-reviewed publications in the world that deal with climate change, and to ban skeptics, critics of that kind of a notion from those periodicals. There's intimidation of people. There is fabrication of data, corruption of data. There was the intimidation of editors, and even actually getting one editor fired for having the courage to print a very fine article that questioned the catastrophist notion. So there is a lot of corruption, but frankly, even though I don't agree with it on everything, I think that the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change actually presents a pretty realistic picture in its massive assessment reports. Sadly, what's in those isn't what typically gets to the public. We get press releases and statements from UN officials like, this is code red for humanity. You won't get the support for that in the massive scientific reports. And so the notion that there is such a consensus is largely pushed by people who believe in catastrophic climate change, but it's not really well supported by the scientific literature itself, including by the UN IPCC. This is the kind of thing that we discuss in Climate and Energy, the Case for Realism. And by the way, during the month of April, the Cornwall Alliance for the Stewardship of Creation, a nonprofit think tank of which I'm president, will, as our way of saying thank you for a donation of any size, be glad to send a copy of this almost 500-page book to anyone who donates. All they need to do is to go to cornwallalliance.org/donate, make the donation, and make the request, and we'll be glad to send it.
Our author of the week, sponsored by ABC Books on North Glenstone, Calvin Beisner again. It is Climate and Energy, the Case for Realism. I'm Nick Reed on Springfield's Talk 1041. This KSGF.com. Sign up for Godfather's Pizza Party. Sign up for free lunch with Sarah and me with Lunch Bunch at Retro Metro. Tickets to the upcoming 2024 Man Show Expo. Also, the tickets that you could win grant you entry to the Ozark Shredfest drifting event. I did not realize that. And then, of course, tickets to see Barry Manilow in concert. The Great Southern Bank Arena, Saturday, October 24th. A little something for everyone there. Traffic update now. I am Nick Reed. First Alert Forecast, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals from Color 10 Fox 49, meteorologist Tom Schmidt. Mostly sunny today, high near 66, 45 for a low tonight, 40% chance of showers after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Friday, high of 69, and then Saturday, sunny with a high near 59. A report detailing the helplessness that is now felt by female students due to being forced to compete against males, participating with their, men participating in their female sport team will be released sometime today after congressional investigation into proposed Title IX changes by the Biden administration. I thought we'd cover a few stories that just show where the leftist culture has taken us. Senator Bill Cassidy, Republican Louisiana, ranking member of the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pension, is expected to release the findings of the committee staff's investigation into the proposed changes and their effort on female sports in a letter to his committee colleagues. The investigation included interviews with dozens of people, including female athletes and coaches, parents, industry experts, doctors, and representatives from higher education institutions. Last year, Biden proposed a rule change that would expand Title IX to exclude females by including gender identity. Along with biological sex, the term gender identity is used to describe whatever anyone wants to be. Cassidy told Fox News Digital in the interview what they found is that females, quote, feel helpless. This is the kind of theme we got. Why am I even trying? I don't have any hope whatsoever, according to female athletes. The Help Committee report detailed the story of one woman at Roanoke College in Salem, Virginia, who described her motivational decline following the addition of a transgender woman, a.k.a. man, to her swim team. Quote, it felt unfair and demotivating to even want to try or to want to swim better. The unnamed female athlete is quoted as saying 16 of 17 female swimmers on that team ultimately penned a letter to the athletic director in which they relayed feeling manipulated and scared. Quote, our lives have been consumed by this issue. We cannot think about our classes as we sit in lectures and we enjoy our practices, one woman wrote. Well, those women clearly need counseling. They're clearly just hysterical. This is what the female college students are oftentimes told, that they can get psychological help if they have a problem with having to compete and shower with men. This is the world that the left has cornered women into. And not just the left, but this is I think it's fair to say that just as much as the Democrat Party is synonymous with abortion, they have become synonymous with making women second-class citizens when it comes to the issue of competition, showers, freedom to assemble. The report summarized similar testimony of a female cyclist at Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado. Quote, I've wondered what's the point even racing, she said. Two members of the women's swim team at the University of Pennsylvania, which became a headline-generating subject during transgender swimmer Leah Thomas's domination in the sport, recalled feeling that their school was prioritizing Thomas over them. Well, of course they were. This is the new world. Men are first. Quote, our voices as women were completely silenced. If we wanted privacy and safety and equality, then we were bigots. This has roots in misogyny, and allowing this to go on is misogynistic. Quote, this is not bigotry, Cassidy said, noting that those interviewed for their investigation did not have anything at all against transgender individuals. Well, now that's not what we're told. We're told that these are hate mongers. We're told that women in 2024 are responsible for the murder of transgender individuals, of men who are simply being who they are when they identify as women. It is also a sign of where Democrats have put women in this country. When women feel as if they have to note and make great focus on the point that they don't hate transgender people simply because they're trying to defend themselves. The fact that they have to even do that. It's like that's a tax on them for defending women. It is to go overboard and make sure that they praise transgenders and talk about how wonderful and they don't have anything against transgenders. That's part of the requirement for them to defend themselves as women. Now, the media will not focus on this. They will not cover it. And if so, what they'll do is they will just have some sort of reference to the fact that this is a Republican report and that it's only a handful of examples, and then they'll cite the numbers of all of the millions of transgenders in this world and how this sort of report is what makes them want to kill themselves. And this all will, once again, reestablish and validate what women who are victims are feeling in this country and what makes them victims. They're not allowed to speak up. We've been taken back 60, 70 years in this country by the Democrat Party when it comes to women. They are to be seen, not heard. And they can talk, and they can express opinions as long as it's approved. And they're fine doing their little thing together. But if a man comes along and says, guess what? I'm going to be part of this as well, that is when they need to keep their mouths shut. This from the party, the Democrat Party, that claims to be the party of women. And what do they base that on? They support what is referred to by many of them as people with vaginas, so-called right to kill their own children. About half of which, of course, are actual women, or actual girls, or actual females. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. Hey, look, it's Sarah Myers.
Hey, look, that's me, Avis, the car rental company. They have got a program for just about everyone. For you weekend road trippers, that's me. They offer short-term rentals for those unexpected emergencies that seem to pop up from time to time. They have daily rentals, and they have a new rental called the long-term rental program. Now, the long-term rental program, it is a great option if you are a person who likes to lease your vehicles, but you want a little more flexibility with the program. It's also great if you are going to purchase a new vehicle soon, but you have a couple of makes and models that you want to try before you actually go ahead and make a commitment. And if you're a business owner, long-term rentals are a great addition as a fleet vehicle as well. Now, from sports cars to EVs to Ford cargo vans, they've got hundreds of options for you to choose from. And if you get into a vehicle and you realize, you know what, I want to swap vehicles out, you can do that every couple of months if you wish to do so. So if you want more information on any of the programs that I mentioned, swing by the Avis store. It's located right here in Springfield off of Fort and Sunshine. Make sure to speak to Lauren. And of course, you can find all of that contact information for Avis Springfield under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
All right, the last segment, have this last part of the program, just snapshots of where the Democrat Party has taken us in this country, areas in which they have gotten their way, they've moved the ball, and there is a congressional investigative report that is set to come out that when it comes to the Democrats' insistence that women be forced and girls be forced to compete against boys, that there's a sense of hopelessness, that so many of them are just giving up, or it becomes demoralizing when they know that, yeah, they're still good, but they aren't going to get a gold medal, or they won't get that scholarship because they're told that a man takes precedent by the Democrat Party over them. One of the text messages coming in saying if women would just sit down and refuse to compete whenever a man is competing, it might bring more attention to the cause. And there are some that are doing that. But yeah, I suppose it would need to happen to the point that the competitions can't even continue on. Sometimes, for example, there was I think it was basketball. It was basketball. It was high school or college. I think it was high school. And several weeks ago, the one team had 3 boys on it that identified as girls. The other did not. And the coach of the team that was all actual girls eventually called the game for the safety of his team because a number of them got injured, one of them badly. And when you see the video, because it was clear, you had a guy just, there was a fight over the ball and just whipped her around like she was a rag doll, and it gave her a back injury. And, but that doesn't seem to stop the conference or whatever. They still, well, too bad, so sad. You should just be stronger as a woman, seems to be that approach. But we are seeing some, I think, weightlifting and in some cycling competitions where there are enough women that say we are not going to take a back seat to men, that there are some changes taking place. So I do think that's what's going to happen. But one of the things that, and this is what I think that it sounds like the report is finding, and it makes sense, that the Democrats have been successful in preventing women from doing that because they don't want to have their careers threatened. They don't want to have their, some of these people that it's outside of academics. It is, professional cycling or weightlifting. So much of the financial success that they rely on comes off of sponsorships. Well, you know how some of these companies can be. If you get labeled as transphobic, they drop you in a minute. So a lot of these girls are afraid to stand up for themselves. And this is just, again, the decades back that women have been sent by this demand of the Democrat Party that they know their place. You just see it, and they've made women afraid. They've made girls afraid that they'll get treated like some of those who do stand up for themselves. And hopefully, the Republicans are locked in on this support and protection of women, and I think that we're going to see normal people who have been lulled into thinking that it's compassionate to make women take a backseat to men when it comes to this issue. They're going to start realizing, okay, you know what, this is wrong. And sometimes, standing up for what's right means you're going to be called names. Sometimes standing up for what's right means that you're going to have people demand that you be canceled. But everyone who ever stood up for what was right and righteous went through that. The civil rights era, those who were against slavery, those who fought for women's rights to begin with, oftentimes were marginalized. And so sometimes that's, that is, yes, doing the right thing isn't always the easy thing. Hot Air has a report, week-long Seattle drag camp for kids. This is an event, Drag Camp 1.0, The Art of Drag, 2.0, The Art of Performance, week-long. One of the individuals involved in this, and Hot Air has a story posted, and some of the graphics, is it is rated R stuff. Part of the promotion of this reads, calling all current and future royalty, your invitation to slay is here. We're talking, these are 12-year-old kids that are being targeted. Explore self-expression in this camp led by Seattle performer Joshua Hancock and featuring performers Kara Sutra, King Leo Maine, and Mia Moore, where you'll immerse yourself in drag history, learn hair and makeup technique, and create your persona with their own name and stage presence. Then it'll be time to own the stage in a private showcase to celebrate your new drag identity. So this is all, it's sexualized. And, I mean, any adult, I don't care who you are, any adult who targets children to teach them how to be more sexual, you're talking about 12-year-old kids, that is not normal behavior. And when we were a society that culturally had its head on straight, we knew that. We actually protected kids. We didn't serve them up on a silver. It's amazing, at this same time right now, it's gone viral, this documentary about how kids were groomed that worked on Nickelodeon back like in the 80s and 90s, and all of these stories about how, these kids are adults now, and many of them are telling their stories about what some of these predators would do. And it's the same behavior that we see at these camps. And it's this contradiction in our culture where you've got people sharing. I've seen, and some of them are left-wing people like, I can't believe when I was watching these shows as a kid on Nickelodeon, know what was going on behind the scenes. No one was protecting these kids. These kids were just 14, 15 years old, and these predators, where were their parents? I'll never watch a Nickelodeon show again because of this. But then they'll send their own kids off to drag camp to be sexualized. And how we have this contradiction is yet another sign that we have, at least a significant segment of the population, have completely abandoned critical thinking. And unfortunately, when it comes to this particular issue, it's the children who suffer. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. All of your home buying needs, all of your home selling needs, above and beyond. The vast majority within 6 months of people who go through all the schooling, they get out there, and then you get a majority of them that get into the world of realty and burned out, gone, done, and over with. You want to make sure that you have someone who has a proven track record, somebody who has a proven track record of not only sticking with it in terms of longevity, but read the reviews, talk to people. You can reach out to people who on social media have reviewed Emily Johnson very specifically about what they like about her. You can send me messages if you want. I've utilized her. Sarah's utilized her. And that's why I highly recommend that you do, as well as so many others. For all of your home buying needs, your home selling needs, it's Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. And a couple more stories in the culture that the left has crafted here in the United States of America. Harvard students hold vigil for Hamas terrorists. Well, isn't this lovely? Students at Harvard University held a vigil, or a community wake, on Tuesday in memory of what they said were the victims of the Jews attacking Shifa Hospital in Gaza. The victims, who are actually Hamas terrorists, including a senior Hamas official. Of course, Israel has discovered Hamas using the hospital to hide terrorists, and this is they do it all the time. They use schools, they use daycares, they use hospitals. This is part of their MO, and this allows them to know where to look for them. And having a great success in not only taking out a number of the terrorists, but one of the top senior Hamas officials, and you have students, no doubt, taught about diversity, equity, and inclusion and critical race theory, holding a vigil for that top Hamas terrorist. And Jewish New York City high schoolers are just flat out being warned not to even apply to Cornell University because of the school's failure to protect Jewish students from anti-Semitism. Still see these PSAs that run on television talking about, you just really have to watch out for anti-Semitism. We know where it is. And it's being allowed to continue. See you at Scramblers tomorrow. I'm Nick Reed.